G'day YouTube people, I've been wrestling with this video for a week, so I just need to bash it out. This is going to be the short version. And it's going to be about Timbrell Park and the master plan that Canada Bay Council put together a couple of years ago, and the fact that they're now seeking more public input into the plan. So they recently came out on the Collaborate site and said we want to refresh our public comment. So that's going to be open for the next month or so. Now, what you can do is you can go to the Collaborate site and put in some comments on the plan if you want to, or maybe even better, you could attend one of the information sessions. And there's one coming up this Tuesday, 23rd of May at between 4:30 and 6 in the park. And they did this, well, back in 2019 when they were developing the original master plan. I went to one of the sessions. They set up a marquee in a corner of the park. There'll be a couple of people there and you can go and have a chat with them and they note the stuff down. There's another one, of course, on Thursday, the 8th of June, if you can't make the first one. So if you're one of those people that rides around Timbrell Park or through it, or you use the facilities there, get down there and have a chat with council. Now, obviously, being a bike channel, we're going to focus on the bike-related stuff in the plan. There's a lot of good stuff in here about the sports grounds, you know, the amenities block, Livy's Place, cafe, all that kind of thing. We're just going to focus on the transport elements, particularly active transport. Now, the acid test for me for this plan is that local residents aged 8 to 80 can access Timbrell Park unassisted without a private motor vehicle. And that should really line up with a whole host of strategies that Council has actually come out with since 2019. Things like I'll get to them in a minute. I can't remember them off the top of my head. But the feeling I get from this 2019 plan, remember it's 4 years old, is that this was written at a time when council was happy to build a bike path around the park where you can ride your bike, but they prefer that you put your bike on the back of the car and drive it to the park. Now, have things changed in the 4 years since 2019? Well, some of us might not be so sure given what happened to Heath Street, but we can only hope. Now, one of the key things, though, is if council scratches together the money to actually implement this plan properly, then it's going to attract more people to Timbrell Park. So the question is, how are those people actually going to get to the Timbrell Park? You know, people that live within a couple of hundred metres, like we did. People that might live 1 or 2 kilometres away, you know, in places like Russell Lee and actual, 5 Dock itself, or further afield, when you got rugby players and, so on coming in from Balmain and Leichhardt and Concord and places like that. But, with Council's current approach to getting people to the park, it's clearly going to mean more traffic or more vehicle traffic, more congestion, more traffic noise, more parking issues, all the fun stuff that goes with lots of people trying to get to, a small space at the same time. So from my perspective, you can't consider upgrades to the park in isolation from transport policy. And unfortunately, that's what the original plan did, and that's in Appendix D at the back. The 11th most popular item that people wanted to talk about was traffic on Henley Marine Drive, and it was deemed out of scope. So, hey, so sad, too bad. So, from my take is the main issues are the following. Council clearly needs to do a traffic study for the surrounding area, and this was actually promised to the Heath Street residents. I don't think one was ever done, but instead of just doing one street, they need to do, Henley Marine Drive and all the streets or roads which actually intersect with Henley Marine Drive from the north, and then come up with a traffic management strategy from that. Not a parking strategy. We're not interested in creating more parking, although council might be. We're interested in how we can get people, down those streets to the park safely. Now, in order to do that, we need more pram ramps, preferably one at every intersecting street on Henley Marine Drive. They need to be wider, they need to be modern designs, and there needs to be more vehicle clearance beside the pram ramps to improve the sight lines. At least one vehicle either side, or one parking space either side of every pram ramp needs to be eliminated to provide clear sight lines up and down the street. That might mean putting in some concrete islands because, when parking short, drivers will just park over, hashed painted lines on the road. Even better would be to put in some safe crossings across Timbrell Drive and Henley Marine Drive. Now, apparently the Network Division of Transport for New South Wales objects to putting a wombat crossing over Timbrell Drive because it's going to interfere with vehicle movements coming off the City West Link and stuff like that. Yeah, that's like a higher level problem. But why can't we have at least one safe crossing across Henley Marine Drive, and preferably multiple crossings? Why not have a pedestrian crossing or a wombat crossing at every single street which comes down to Timbrell Park? I mean, if you really want to get people in and out of the park safely, particularly local residents or people who are parking up those side streets, that's the kind of thing you'd put in. And to hell with the people running along Henley Marine Drive. Now, obviously, you need to also put in a lot of traffic calming, to stop people speeding through those pedestrian crossings. Now, that would give you crossings that cater for all ages and abilities. We're not just interested in catering for, fit adults. It's got to be that 8 to 80 range, and people that, might not be able to get around so easily anymore because they've got bad knees or bad hips or, disability of some sort. And I reckon, the best thing for families would be for them to be able to say, kids, get off your devices, go and get your friends, go and get the footy, go down the park and kick it around for an hour, or be back for dinner. And not have to worry about the kids being run over getting across Henley Marine Drive, or a parent having to say, I'm going to have to walk down there with you, get you across the road safely, then sit there in a chair and play on my phone for an hour while you kick the footy around, and then walk you back again, because parents don't have time for that these days, which is why kids aren't getting the kind of outdoor activities they should be, because it's impossible to do it on their own because parents are terrified of traffic and the kids getting knocked over. So, if we can overcome that, that would be a great thing. Now, the plan does mention secure bike parking. Yeah, that's great, but what we really need is secure bike parking in lots of convenient locations. And by secure, it's got to meet the crime prevention through environmental design ideas, CPTED. So, for instance, if you're going to put one in at the amenities block, you put it out the front of the amenities block, between the amenities block and the sports fields, or to the side, where it can be surveilled by everybody. So, for instance, if the kids were playing soccer and I was on the sausage sizzle duties on the barbecue, at the amenities block, on the kind of concrete pad out the front, where you can watch watch them play. You don't want to have your bike parked on the other side of the amenities block where you can't see it through, a brick wall. You want it to be, where you can just turn to one side or whatever, and there it is. That's the kind of thing which stops bikes getting stolen. It's under direct surveillance all the time. Now, I also think council should get some reps from Baybug to come down on the bikes, and the whole group ride around with a can of spray paint, and agree on convenient locations for each what I call facility at Timbrell Park. So, where's the best place for bike racks? At the cafe, at the baseball diamond, at each soccer field, at the amenities block, that kind of thing. Because you need to realise that if you're going down there to play soccer, and your team is playing on the field that's right up in the corner against Timbrell Drive, for instance, you don't want to park your bike at the amenities block or at the baseball diamond or at the cafe. You're not going to lock it up there and then walk all that distance. You want it to be right next door to where you're playing. So you can keep an eye on it and make sure it doesn't get nicked. Now, new paths, and I think this one is definitely going to need some feedback or interaction with council, because what style of path do we want? Now, the most recently built path around the Bay Run, which went in a couple of years ago, on the Leichhardt side, leading around to the rowing club, most of it is separated. So, you've got the pedestrian path next to the water, and then a vegetation strip, and then a nice wide bike path. And, that seems to work quite well. Do we want that style of path around the park? Because remember, there's going to be commuter cyclists and all that kind of thing using the paths. So therefore, you want them to be reasonably high speed and separated from pedestrian traffic. Or do we want a really nice wide shared path, like super wide? And I've put in a photo here from Perth showing the principal shared path going down to Freo. You can see how wide it is. I mean, look at that four-wheel drive partly parked on the path, how wide they are. Now, it's probably too wide, taking up too much space, but somewhere in the middle is I guess the old optimum width, the Goldilocks width. So, rather than council just coming up with a width that they think is sufficient, I think cyclists need to have their input and say, no, that's not wide enough. You need to go wider for safe distance. And yeah, proper integration with all the new strategies which council has come out with over the last couple of years. So they've come out with, for instance, a emissions reduction action plan. There's a movement plan. There's crikey, what else have we got? There's been the pedestrian access and mobility plan, the disability inclusion action plan. All these things need to be tied into this plan properly, because obviously they were all written after the master plan was put together. So, there's no integration, but now that can be done. An interesting one, though, I think, is the electric vehicle strategy and action plan, which came out a few months ago. And in there, there's a page on the transport hierarchy that needs to be adopted. And it says here, council's local movement strategy is an integrated approach to improving transport and mobility. It's all this stuff is in here now. And the transport hierarchy clearly puts people first, then bicycles, with private motor vehicles number 6 right down the bottom. So I would just cut and paste this page into the start of the Timbrell Park master plan, and then have all this stuff flow from that about how do we get people to go to the park via active transport or public transport, or shared mobility or whatever, rather than driving and then needing to find a parking space. Because, having been a resident twice, kind of next to Timbrell Park, I clearly understand what the parking and traffic issues are like. They can be really quite shocking at times. And the speeding and the rat running on Henley Marine Drive has to be seen to be believed at some times of the day. So, if they can put this transport hierarchy in there and amend their thinking and start to integrate these other plans, then, it might actually turn into quite a comprehensive plan, and a very good one. And, and council can then use the reasoning of, the most important thing for us is activating Timbrell Park as a recreational space and a sporting space and that kind of thing, and enabling people of all ages and abilities to walk there or scooter there or cycle there, or go thump 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 on their wheelie walker, or on their electric gopher that you'll see old people running around with on these days, or electric wheelchairs. All those people should be, if they live reasonably nearby, should be able to get to the park without having to drive. And for me, the most crazy thing when we're living in Norman Street, for instance, is that the only way we could get my mother-in-law to the park would be to stick her in the car and drive her down there and park on the park side of Henley Marine Drive so she could then get out of the car, because she's got mobility issues. She would not be able to safely get across Henley Marine Drive the way people drive up and down it, just because she walks very slowly these days. And that is a shocking indictment of how we're treating our elderly residents and visitors, that they can't do that. Anyway, like I said, there's information sessions open. Next one's, the first one actually is Tuesday the 23rd of May. You can go to the Collaborate site and leave some comments as well. And look, if you do, also just leave a comment on this video so other people can see all the ideas that are coming out, because the problem with the Collaborate site is you provide your feedback to council, other people then can't see it. It's like, it's individualised, which, okay, it's good that it's all nice and private and all that kind of thing, but the problem is you don't get like a proper town hall discussion going on. There are other applications these days which allow that kind of thing to happen, where you drop a pin on a map and you leave a comment and everyone can see what's going on. I think that's a really good system for getting feedback from people. But, the second best thing is just leave a comment here. But otherwise, get down to the info session, give council your 2 cents worth, and hopefully you got some value out of this video.